I have got my first guest for the hour, and his name is Harry Uddoh. Let's see if he's there. Harry, are you there?
Hey, Mani, yes, I am indeed. So excited to be here, excited to be on the show.
Oh, I'm so honoured, so happy to have you on the show, Harry. And I've got loads of questions.
Thank you. Very kind.
Oh, bless you. Got so many questions for you, but before we go there, if you'd just like to introduce yourself to the listening audience.
Yes, absolutely. My name is Harry Uddoh. I am a dating and relationship coach, and essentially what I do is I work with individuals and couples to develop and cultivate greater meaning and overall satisfaction in their relational lives. So a little bit about me. I am Nigerian. I was born in Nigeria, but I've got mixed heritage, so I'm Nigerian, Jamaican, Irish, and I'm currently now based in Dublin, Ireland. So I'm actually calling from Ireland right now.
Awesome. Wow. So, oh wow. I mean, that's a really exciting, blend there. And
explosive mix is how I like to term it. Explosive mix.
Indeed.
Yeah.
But, the result is you, a lovely young man who has decided to make changes in people's your relationship life, love life. Harry, what made you decide to become a relationship coach?
Right. So when I think of this question, it really takes me back to my earliest years, right? So growing up with my parents, my parents got a divorce when I was really, really young. And I think that as a consequence of what from my perspective as a 5-year-old child at the time seemed like an abrupt ending, it created this deep curiosity within me around, hold on a second, what happened? What happened to my parents' unit, right? Because I knew that unified front, right? I knew my world up until that point revolved around this microcosm that was myself and my parents, right? Now, of course, being a 5-year-old kid, I was only told so much, right? Understandably so, but I would ask questions. I ended up growing up with my grandparents and my dad, and I would constantly ask them, what happened? Why are mom and dad not together anymore? And I would never get a straight answer. Even when I would get an answer, I felt even at that young age like, I feel like there's more to this, right? So that made me even more curious about relationships as a whole, right? So how do you go from being the solid unit one day and then, the next day having this disintegration of sorts, right, of this institution? And I saw the ripple effect that had on not just my life, but the life of my siblings, the life of my my grandparents, my uncles, my aunties, etc. Anyway, so fast forward, I get into my teen years, and I would say it was, your standard sort of teenage trajectory as it pertains to love and, relationships, right? Because you're still trying to figure out who you are, right?
Absolutely.
You're trying to figure out who you are, and it's, for a lot of us, that's our entry point into the world of romance and relational dynamics. So, I had my experiences there as a teen, and, towards the end of my teenage years, I moved to Ireland, and, I got into college, and I met a lady when I was around, 18, just about to turn 19. I met a woman who I believed was the love of my life, or at least she was the love of my life at the time, right? And interestingly enough, when I first realized, I feel deeply for this person, the first thing that came into my mind was, hold on a second. You may feel deeply for her, but this thing that you feel is not going to be enough to sustain this long term. So if you want this to work, if you don't want what happened from your childhood to sort of replicate itself, then you better learn all you can about love and relationships. So that was what really deepened my sort of inquiry into what makes a relationship work, right? What does a good healthy relationship look like? How can I be the best partner that I can be? So that's really where I was coming from, right? Trying to be the best partner that I could be in that situation. Okay. Now, at the same time, I had just discovered coaching because I came across this Tony Robbins video, and it just completely blew my mind. It completely blew my mind, you know. So what was happening was I was in college and I was learning about coaching and also learning about relationships, right? So I ended up being in that particular relationship for about 4.5 years. So in that time, you know, I deepened my, in my mind, I deepened my understanding about relationships and relational dynamics. And I thought I was the relationship guy. I thought I'd gotten to a stage where I knew all there was to know about relational dynamics, about being a good partner, etc. But you know, to my surprise, at one point, my girlfriend at the time, she decided that she wanted to move in a different direction. Okay, now you can imagine my shock, because at this point, you know, my whole identity is built around, oh, I'm the relationship guy. You know, I'm the only person that I know who has dedicated so much time into, you know, delving deep into these topics, right? Because I'd studied everything from, you know, the giants in the field, Esther Perel, Tony Robbins, Guy Winch, Catherine Woodward Thomas, John and Julie Gottman, you name it. I was there and present, and you know, so for me, this really shook me, because I was thinking to myself, if after having put in all this effort, I still find myself in this position, well, what does that say about me? Is there some sort of fundamental inadequacy, right, in my being? Okay, so this was a very deep, fundamental question that I was grappling with. And, you know, long story short, I found myself in the valley of despair, right? I went through a depression. And, you know, now in hindsight, it wasn't just a breakup, but I feel as though the breakup was the thing that ushered in the entire spectrum of my emotions. Like, that was the trigger. And, you know, I sort of carried on just wallowing in this, like, state of disempowerment is what I would call it, right? Because I was dealing with questions like, why me? Why now? Right? How could this be? After everything that I put into this, after all the work that I put in to try and become the best possible partner, right? But one evening, everything changed. A friend of mine sent me a quote, and it was a quote from Picasso, and the quote read, you know, every act of creation is first an act of destruction. And, you know, when I read that, you know, I read those words, and
Harry,
he accompanied it with a...
Harry, can you repeat that again?
Yeah, absolutely. So every act of creation is first an act of destruction. Okay? So that, for me, coupled with, there was an image of, you know, the phoenix. There was a GIF, actually. This was over WhatsApp. So I think it was a combination of the imagery with the text, but, you know, it created this sort of visceral reaction in my body and in my psyche, where I started to, it was almost like experiencing or watching a highlight reel, you know, but except in this situation, it was just me going through different things that had happened in my life, from growing up in Nigeria up until that point, right? Up until the earliest moments in the relationship. And I realized, hold on a second, what I'm feeling right now, fundamentally, this is pain, right? The fundamental nature of pain remains the same, irrespective of how it's manifested, right? So whilst I may not have experienced pain in this exact fashion, I'm no stranger to pain. And those situations where I felt this sort of visceral pain, I've always come through on the other end, right? So for the first time, I had this sort of glimmer of hope that, hold on a second, there is a way through this, right? There is a way forward. This is not the end, okay? So I get out of that sort of disempowering state, and then I started to ask new questions like, okay, what have I learned from this situation, okay? And where did I go wrong? Because up until this point, my view was, well, I was the perfect partner. So how could this happen to me, right? And once I changed the question, I started to ask more empowering questions like, okay, where did I go wrong? all of a sudden I start to see things that I wasn't necessarily aware of, right? Areas where perhaps I wasn't as communicative as I would have liked to be, or as I thought I was. Areas where perhaps I wasn't respecting certain boundaries, or even areas where I wasn't making my boundaries known, right? Or where a certain boundary may have been crossed, I didn't stand up for myself. You know, I didn't say, hey, look, that was the boundary. And you know what I mean? So I started to get all this new insight. And what that did was it led me down this path of, hold on a second, all this material that I'd been sort of ingesting over the past 4 years, let me revisit everything with this new set of eyes, right? And I start to go back to this material and I start to ask questions that I wouldn't have been comfortable asking while I was in that relationship, because they would have threatened my sense of security. So questions like, okay, how does one reconcile the fact that they love their partner, right, with the reality that they are still sexually attracted to other people, right? And this was an inward inflecting question, because this was something that I'd experienced, but I didn't dare explore that question while I was in the relationship. Okay, so I'm sort of gaining all these insights, and I decided to myself, you know what, let me go online, and I want to speak to a relationship expert. Okay, now I want to say that at this point I'd already started working with people as a coach, but I was working more in a general area, sort of as a life coach, right? Because I started my master's in coaching, where I was studying everything from, you know, the cognitive behavioral approaches to sort of psychodynamics, mindfulness-based self-management, and even aside from all of that, I've been self-studying at this point for, 4 or 5 years, right? But I go online and I'm trying to find experts, and what I see is people, offering programs like, look, how to get your ex back in 6 weeks, and you know what I mean, how to make your ex miss you, and and I'm thinking to myself, well, this is not what I'm looking for, right? Where is the program that is going to take me deep into myself? And then, one might ask, well, why didn't you go to therapy? Well, I've been in therapy, and I didn't feel like I wanted to learn specifically about relationships. I wanted to go to an expert and say, look, this is all the stuff that I've learned, right? I want you to tell me what my blind spots are and where I went wrong, etc. But I just wasn't able to find anyone that really aligned with what I felt I needed, just from a philosophical standpoint. So what I did was I started to speak to my family, I started to speak to my brothers, I started to speak to, friends, I started to speak to, so I trained in martial arts, I started to speak to people at the gym, etc. And what I found was, by talking and getting different perspectives, I realized that when it comes to our relational lives, for the most part, we are just winging it. Okay, it's for whatever reason, it's not seen as all that important, in the sense that we all know relationships are important, right? But you don't think about the educational component. Like, okay, what does it take to have a right? What does it take to have a successful relationship? We go to school, we spend X amount of years in primary school, secondary school, and then you're off to college, and you can do all these professional certifications, blah 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 blah. But there's nothing for our relational health, and this for me was just alarming. And I realized, hold on a second, I've got all this insight, right, that I've gained from all these years. I've got the skill set in terms of coaching. I have this deep passion for helping people. And that was when I decided, you know what, I'm going to be that person that I was looking for online, right? The person who would take people deeper into themselves, as opposed to trying to get them to win their ex back. And look, if that's what you want to do, fair enough. That's why there are a lot of practitioners out there who cater to that. Fair enough. I'm not going to talk down on anybody's craft, right? But what I will say is there are people like myself who are looking to go just a little deeper. Right? Because you could get your ex back, but if you're still operating on the same mental models, if you're still implementing a pattern, nothing changes. That's exactly it. So that was the premise that I started on, is to take people deeper, but so they could really examine themselves. And that was when I suppose the my journey as a relationship coach became crystallized under that label. But if you ask me where did it start, I would say it started all those years, when I was 5 years old.
Wow. That is
very long answer to your question. I just wanted to give you a good sense of context. Thank you.
Wow, Thank Harry, you made so many good points there, as in, what you were looking for is the deeper, and you're so right. And I think one of the reasons why what's happened is years ago when people came together, it was more about role mates, wasn't it? It was more about mum, the mother does her thing, the dad does his thing, and that was it. They came together and they made a family. But now people want more out of their relationships. They are looking for the soul connection. Absolutely. And you were looking for somebody. You were looking for somebody who was going to kind of give some sort of insight into that. And like you said,
absolutely.
people are kind of just feeding the surface issue, which is the person, is not with their ex, and that asking that particular question, when is my ex coming back? That just tells you that person is not looking really to maybe look at themselves, but they really looking for their band-aid. They're seeing their partner as a band-aid, and they're not looking and asking the deep questions that you were asking us. Where did I go wrong? Right. What I want to ask you,
absolutely.
What I want to ask you is, what are you? Because I know you've been doing it for a little while with the relationship thing. Are you seeing a pattern? Are you seeing certain people coming to you? Are you seeing changes as the years go on? Are you seeing that people are asking about their relationship more and more? Because as you said earlier on, it doesn't seem, people do know it's important, but it doesn't seem as though people realise that, just like studying for everything else. Why would you take your whole self? Why would you take your whole self, the most important, the one thing that you really have on this planet, and pour yourself into something where you're not really? And people say this. I've heard this saying where marriage is the only thing you get a certificate with before you actually get into it. You get the certificate beforehand.
That's
and then you and it's like, why don't we, and do you find, I think what I'm really asking, are you find that more and more people are coming to you in early phases of their relationship, and even maybe coming to you and saying, look, we hope to be together for a long time, but we want to get it right. We want to, really work on ourselves. What are you finding? What are the questions that people are asking you?
Yeah. Well, honestly, with the couples I work with, it's usually that they've been together for, maybe a year. Or, they've been, in some cases, they've been together for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. I also get a lot of people who have been, they've just gotten out of a relationship, and they now realize that, hold on, there is a pattern in my relational life, right? I keep getting with a certain type of person, and I keep getting hurt in a similar way, and now it's gotten to the point where I can no longer ignore this pattern, right? So I would say that makes up probably the majority of the people who come to me. But I do believe that we're at a unique place in time where I do think there is a revolution in consciousness around relational health, which is that more and more people are starting to realize, like, okay, hold on a second, we have some destructive patterns within our relationship, and maybe it's time for us to seek help, right? Let's speak to someone, So I am seeing that people in long-term relationships are getting to this point where it's like, look, clearly, we're speaking to friends, we're speaking to family, we're speaking to people from our church or whatever other institutions that we belong to, but we're not getting any insight that is, or a lot of the insights we're getting are no more than overly potent simplifications, basically. So for me, that does make me hopeful, but it would be nice to, I suppose, engage with people in the beginning, because then you can put some of the, you can build a solid foundation without having to try and reverse the effects of long-term resentment, which which, by the way, can 100% be done. All you need is the willingness to put in the work, okay? Once you're willing to put in the work and you have both parties willing to put in the work, then there's nothing that you can't reverse, okay? But of course, the earlier you start to work on your relationship, the better. A lot of people wait till there's a problem, right? But if you engage with a professional, in the beginning, well, then you could actually save yourself a lot of pain down the line.
And you talk, Harry, about the work, and that, I think, is the thing that people struggle with. And can you just put into words, in a kind of as simple words as possible, what would you define as the work? What would you define as the work, and why is that a big struggle for people?
Okay, right. So the work, right? Simply put, it is the things you do, right? The behaviors that you engage in on a daily basis, right? That equates to what your relationship ends up looking like. The things, the actions you take on a day-to-day basis, okay? So you have some couples who, they might have that escape to Prague, once or twice a year and whatnot, right? Where, before that holiday comes around, things feel pretty much, just dead in a sense, right? There's just not much, there isn't much, fire anymore, right? They're sort of just, tolerating each other, but then they go away for that holiday, it's a week, and, they feel really passionate and they return, right? And that's because that trip away, right? That is not what reflects the quality of your relationship as a whole. It's the day-to-day action. So, you know what I mean? So it's the little things like how do you, okay, so when you wake up in the morning, how do you engage with each other? Do you get straight into nagging, like, oh, hey, you didn't do this, and, then you're full of contempt, or do you have like some sort of ritual for, embracing each other? And when I say embrace, I mean this metaphorically, right? Embracing each other at the beginning of the day, right? Or when you come back from work, right? Because these are things that you do every day, right? If you live together, you're going to wake up together every day, right? And you go to work, there's a meeting point where, one of you maybe gets home before the other, and there is that, oh, hey, how are you? Welcome back. That welcome, right? If you get that wrong consistently over a 5-year period. So what happens is you start to have this negative association, right, with your return, which is something that you're doing day in, day out. So it's those little things. It's those little things. That's the work, right? Because it takes consistency, effort, and also discipline. Because it's easy to, so you have a bad day at work, and you get home, and you see your partner, and it can be easy to sort of unload your frustration onto them, right, or project it onto them. It takes a certain level of discipline to know, okay, look, I just had a bad day at work, but this has nothing to do with my partner, right? I'm going to be seeing my partner now for the first time in 10, 12 hours maybe, right? So I want to consciously do my part to make this a positive experience. Okay, so that's what the work looks like, those little things. So if you want to draw your partner's attention to something, let's say they haven't done a particular chore or whatever it is, the way in which you bring it up, right? Particularly if this is a weekly occurrence or something that happens, daily, those little things you want to be very conscious of, because your daily habits will make or break your relationship.
That's so powerful, and I love that you said that and broke it down in the way that you did, because I don't think people realise how much the little things can build up and become, the big obstacle eventually to the relationship. And like you said, little
Absolutely.
things, little things like, maybe waking up and just feeling lucky to be with each other and grateful, and like you mentioned, rituals.
Gratitude is a powerful one.
Yeah, like you mentioned daily rituals. Like, by yourself, you should have these daily rituals. But even, as a couple, even more so, where like, you probably do certain things before you allow the day to come in, and or other people from outside to enter your mind. That all those things you were saying there, so important. And earlier on, you alluded to the, I think you said some of your clients would say things like, some of their complaints would be, oh, that magic feeling, or the, that kind of when you just feel, oh my God, you can't get enough of them. That seems to be going, or it's gone. And again, what would you say to people about that? Because I feel there are stages in a relationship, and I do feel that the magic that comes, that's kind of like a gift from Mother Nature. But then, it's up to us to kind of recreate it. And what would you say? What would you say your answer to, someone saying, well, the magic seems to have gone. It's, it's like the lights were on and now it's switched off. We're in the dark now. What are we going to do?
Right.
What would you say to a couple like that?
Yeah. No, I think that's a great question, honestly. And I think the first problem, I would say the first issue is that you're looking at it as magic. Okay? So, because if you look at that, right, because first of all, it's magic, so this is this thing that I have no control over. It's this sort of mythical force that, sort of engulfs us and encapsulates us every now and again. We have no control over it. So that's the first shot. Yeah, that's the first issue, is you see it as magic. The second thing is, first of all, stop seeing it as magic and realize that you can create the conditions, right, that allow for that sort of that spark, that passion, to envelop yourself and your partner. And there are a load of sort of intimacy rituals you can do, but even just something as simple as setting time aside to connect on an intimate level. So, for example, it could be scheduling, 1 hour a week, or 1 hour a day. I mean, the higher the frequency, the better, of course, right? Because you're building up the habit. Even if it's 30 minutes or 20 minutes a day, right? Where it's just you and your partner, right? And you're intentional about, okay, right now, I just want to be focused. I'm focused on you, right? For these 20 minutes, you are the most important thing in the world to me, right? And I just want to hear from you. Let's hear from each other. Let's be present. This is not about the bills. This is not about the kids. This is not about our jobs. This is not about all the daily stressors. This is about me and you. Like, how are you doing? Like, how are you? How are you feeling? Right? What's going on in your world? You know what I mean? So those rituals for connection, right, repeated over time, they create the conditions for that magic, that magic to manifest itself. Okay? Maybe it's intentionally going out on a date, right, once a week, or another thing that I've recommended for some clients is to actually, because again, another thing that comes up repeatedly is, we don't have time to make love because life, it just gets so busy with work and with different projects, and it's just and all of a sudden that gets sort of pushed to the side, and maybe it happens once a month, and then that that leads to dissatisfaction, on one or both ends, right? So one thing I would say is make time to sort of schedule, put your lovemaking into your schedule, okay? And one might say, well, it's not supposed to be like that, it should just happen organically. Well, no, it's these sort of romantic ideals that lead us into these situations in the first place, where we're feeling dissatisfied, where our love tank is empty because we're expecting it to be this force that just comes and engulfs us, right? No, but you have to be proactive. You have to actively work to create this stuff. So that's another thing. And try and get dialed into your partner's world. So, and John Gottman does a lot of great work on this. He calls it it's the concept of your love map. And really what the love map is, okay, who is my partner today? Okay? Not oh, I know who they are, like we've been together 15 years. That's ridiculous, because you're constantly changing. We are constantly changing. You're not with the same person you met 15 years ago. I mean, you're not with the same person you were with last week or even yesterday, because we are constantly changing. So you have to, one has to have a certain level of humility, right? And you're like, who is my partner today? Like, who are you today? Be curious. If you take one thing from this conversation, just one thing, be curious. That curiosity stokes the flame of passion. That curiosity is like, I want to know, what are you excited about these days? What are you excited about these days? What is something that what is a new activity you would like to try? If you could try anything, what is something you would like to try? Right? Because what that does is that gives me an update on who you are right now in this moment. And then I just keep checking in. Who are some of your, like John Gottman, I think a question that he likes to share with couples is, who are some of the heroes and villains in your life today? Right? What you know what I mean? Like, if you could start your career afresh, what would you do? You know what I mean? If you could go back 5 years into the past, what would you do different? Right? What you love about our relationship right now? What you love about our relationship like right now? Or another one is, for example, I had a conversation with my girlfriend today, right? Guess what the topic of our conversation was? How can we take our sexual connection, our sexual intimacy to the next level? And what we did is we started by talking about, okay, what do we like? What do we both enjoy about our sexual connection right now, today? What's everything that we love? So she went first. She told me everything that she loves, and then I told her everything that I love, and and while she was saying certain things, I was like, oh, I didn't realize you love that so much, so I'm gonna do more of it, and vice versa. I would say, oh, hey, I love this thing, so I said, oh, thank you for that. I didn't realize you were really in, and then okay, so cool. What is something that maybe in this particular moment in time you're not getting as much pleasure from? Of course, this is a bit uncomfortable, right? You got to check your ego, right? Because the ego doesn't want to hear these things, but it's super necessary. And we both exchanged, we shared our thoughts. Like, I shared, like, okay, here's something that I think maybe we should take a break from. And she told me, okay, and then here's another thing on my end that I think, let's just give it a rest for now, because I'm not in a space where I want this, but here's something I really want. You know what I mean? And then we look to, okay, what do we want to, what new things? So first of all, it's what do we like? What are we doing that we like and we would like to see more of, right? What do we want to, press pause on right now, right? Or eradicate altogether? And then what new practices do we want to bring into our sensual and sexual connection? Okay, conversations like this deepen the intimacy you have with your partner. I can tell you, we were just having a conversation. This was a conversation even over this was a video call today, but I can tell you it was such an arousing conversation, because we were able to step into that intimate space with each other and be open and be bold about, okay, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, and there is a push and pull element in passion. So it's just these rituals. So like in my relationship, we make time at least once a week to have these sorts of conversations where we check in. What do we like about our connection, right? Even so, take it outside of the realm of just our sexual connection, our relationship as a whole. What do we like? What is one thing that you really like about me? Okay, and about what we share, right? And or what is something that you would like to share with me that you perhaps haven't been able to share because you're a little worried about how I might take it. These little things. So you make sure you are constantly, watering the plant that is your relationship. By checking in, by asking questions, staying curious. Is that curiosity? Okay, our conversation today was 3 hours long. Okay, 3 hours long because there is that curiosity that binds us. It's like, oh, you like that? Tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me why you like that, right? Or this is something you think we should, you don't want us to continue right now. I'm curious. Tell me why, because you used to like this at a time. So tell me, you know what I mean? And you start to learn more and more and more. And you can never stop learning about the other person. Okay, so it's just about bringing a certain level of consciousness, right, to the relationship and understanding that this is something I have to work on actively. But stay curious, because if you stay curious, you will never run out of things to explore because you're so curious. Try new things with your partner. There's nothing like seeing your partner, right, in a different light. You know, maybe you take them to try archery, right? And they're just the way that they hold the crossbow. You see them in a new light, and you know there's something about it. It eroticizes them again. You know what I mean? It's just new environments, new places. You know, try a new skill, play, have fun. It's okay to have fun. I think sometimes, you know, we get into this place in our relationships where, you know, you've been together with someone and all of a sudden you stop trying. You know, your relationship isn't where you have fun. That's where you talk about bills, where you talk about challenge. Let's have fun. It's okay to play. It's okay to play. You know, invest. Don't stop investing in your relationship, right? You invest in everything else. Don't stop investing in your relationship, right? Yeah, just those little things.
Wow. Harry, that's a lot, and that's so powerful. And, you know, I love that you say that, because, you know, what do people normally do? People normally talk to somebody else about all those things. They don't always tell, you know, their partner some of the things that you've said. You know,
the one person.
Yeah,
one person that you need to be telling.
Yes.
Right.
You know, some people tell someone else, "Oh, I really love my partner. I love," you know, and the partner doesn't really hear that, and they're really shocked when someone says, "Oh, you know." And like you said, you know, it awakens something. It awakens that, you know, that feeling, that passion. And like you said, you know, that's the thing that doesn't, Absolutely. You know, that way you keep that fire burning. Because as you said, you know, for 3 hours, you were focused on each other. It wasn't talking about bills.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, all these different things that, you know, in the end, you know, just sucks the life out of the...
You and me.
Yes.
It's just you and me, and we set the intention at the beginning of the call. Like, right now, babe, it's just you and I. That's all that matters. And we could have gone on even longer, because when you get going, it's so consuming and it's so exciting, right? If you have to have the right frame, right? So if you see your partner as, you know, this person is a multiplicity of selves that is ever evolving, then if I see my partner that way, right? If I see them in that way, then I want to know more about this person, because I realize I don't know everything about this person, because they are constantly evolving. But if your frame and your mindset is, oh, I've been with this person a year, I know all there is to know. Sure, look, it's just James. Look, it's just Tanya. You know, like, well, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yes, very much.
You know?
Yeah, it's about, you know, definitely, because that's one of the big things that people feel in their relationships when they talk about, oh, I don't feel that anymore, I don't feel happy. They feel that it's gone complacent, they're taken for granted, they're just seen as this old thing in the corner, and nobody wants to feel like that, you know. So, yeah,
absolutely.
I love what you've said there. So definitely, it's really important to keep that fire burning. Let your partner know how you feel. Don't go and tell, you know, other people. You know, let them know how you feel, good and bad. Because, you know, like, people might tell, you know, their best friend, oh, I don't really like this. What, you know, but like what you're saying is set the place, the environment, the atmosphere, so that you can bring in the good, you know, and the not so good. So that, like a sandwich, I always feel, you know, you're telling them all the wonderful things that you like, and then inside you're also saying, oh, you know, this could change, that could change, and then you bring it back to all the wonderful things again. And I love that, Harry.
Absolutely.
And I think that's really powerful. On the other side, what I want to also, you mentioned Esther Perel, who because some of the people you mentioned, like John Gottman and Esther Perel and Tony Robbins and people, definitely very much into them as well. Esther Perel, she has this saying about, what's your thoughts on the people looking in their relationship for this one person to be what a village used to be? And what do you think about that? What do you think about that statement? Because the love and desire is really important, but, like, you know, there's so many other elements to a human being, like you were saying. So what's your thoughts there? And do you see that in some of your couples that come to you, that sometimes there is pressure, there is a feeling of there's so much pressure they can't even get to the love and desire because they feel like, oh my God, I've got to do this, I've got to be that.
That's a very great, powerful question, because what happens in those situations is we're almost conferring godlike qualities onto our partner. So you're holding them up to a standard that they couldn't possibly meet. So you're essentially setting them up for failure. So on your end, because you put them on this pedestal that they can't actually meet, you're disappointed, and then they have the anxiety of oh my goodness, they expect so much from me, I can never live up to this, and then that starts to turn to resentment. So there's sort of it's like a double-edged sword, of sorts. So what I always say is, it's very important for you to have your individual. So, and I want to be very clear now in what I say, because this is not in any way, shape, or form to suggest that you should devalue your partner. No. But what it means is, when you look at life, there are different silos of life, right? So, for example, let me take myself. I have my relationship, my romantic relationship. I have my relationship with my siblings. I have my relationship with my parents. I have my relationship with, my close friends. There's a relationship that I have with my clients. There's a relationship I have with my teammates in the gym. Okay? So, there are different silos, right? And I get different things from each of those silos. So, for example, there are certain things that I only speak to my mother about. Okay? Because I know that due to the nature of our relationship, she is likely to, she is most likely to give me what I need from a particular type of conversation, right? Now, there's certain conversations that I can only have with my brothers. Okay? And because, again, the bond that we share. There's certain conversations that, I want to have with my friends, with my mates, right? There are certain conversations that are for my girlfriend. And you see, because I pull on this value reservoir, right? This support system that I have, it allows me to really appreciate what I get from each of these silos. What I get from my brothers, I can really appreciate. I'm not expecting my brothers to give me what my mother can give me. I'm not expecting my girlfriend to give me what my brothers will give me, right? So as a consequence of that, I can fully take in and receive what I get from my partner. You know what I mean? So it's very important because you don't want to put that burden on your relationship, right? Of course, there are certain things that you expect to get from the relationship, and that's fair enough. But I always recommend having a support system outside of a relationship. And hey, you might say, look, maybe I don't have a great relationship with my family, or maybe I don't have many friends, or whatever the case may be. Well, in that case, engage the services of a coach or a therapist, right? Because if you're dependent on your partner for everything, right? So think about those different silos that I just spoke to you about. If I was expecting my partner, that one person, to take on all those roles, that is just a ticking time bomb, right? Because she's going to fall short, right? And when she falls short, two things are going to happen. I'm going to feel disappointment, and she's going to feel resentful that I had overwhelmed, and you're expecting too much from me, right? And I understand why. So we confer, this sort of godlike status onto our partner, because deep down, a lot of us want absolution. And if I stand in the presence of the divine, then I become divine as a consequence, right? But the truth is, you are a multifaceted being. So just be aware of the different elements that make you who you are, right? Deep down, we all know that there's different dimensions to life. There is your physical health. There is your financial well-being. There is sort of your vocation, your work, whatever that looks like. There is your relationship. There, maybe you like certain. There's your hobbies and interests. You know what I mean? Things you do just for the fun and the recreation, right? If you are paying attention to each of those things, of course, there's your mental well-being. So engage the services of a coach or a therapist, whatever it is that is your thing, right? But I promise you that if you focus on each and every one of those dimensions, sort of separately, then you will feel less of a need to try and get all of that from that one person. Because first of all, that's counterproductive to the health of your relationship. I can tell you that much. So when I say this, it's not to say, oh, devalue your partner. No, it's give your relationship the room it needs to blossom without this sort of unnecessary pressure, right? Because the truth is, usually when that happens, and in my experience, it's happening because people are not paying attention to those different buckets of their lives. Right? You're not paying attention to those different buckets, and you're trying to almost overcompensate within your relationship. And guess what, folks? I was guilty of doing that myself, in the past. So I understand what that's like. I understand it can be hard to identify that in the moment. But just take it from me. For your relationship to thrive, you want to show yourself some love. And self-love is not just engaging in mind-numbing pleasure. It's like being able to look at those different buckets of life and understanding, oh, hey, you know what? This area here needs a bit of TLC. Okay?
Wow.
Yeah.
So many nuggets there. And I love that you.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you.
I love that you break down the different roles of your needs, as in your mum, your brothers, your friends, your girlfriend, and it goes back to that sort of thing of there's a time and there's different. You need all these different relationships in your life, and when you have those other support relationship, it makes life easier in your romantic relationship.
Yes, absolutely.
I want to ask you about as well. Do you coach? Because you're a young man and what have you. Do you coach all different ages, or do you coach a specific demographic of people? Do you coach younger people, or do you find you get a mixture of all?
I get a mixture of all. I have some clients who, I think my youngest client is 19 years old, and my oldest client is 56 years old.
Wow.
So it's not about age, it's about the willingness and the desire to be happier in this realm of your life.
Okay.
Right? That's all it takes. That's the only prerequisite, is that desire and the willingness to put in the work. You have to be willing to put in the work. And once you're willing to put in the work, things will change. Things will change. If there's one thing that I can assure you, you put in the work, things will change. Right? But another thing is, if you keep doing what you've always done, things will remain the same.
Yeah.
And I can assure you.
And what I want to ask you with that question that you've answered there, now, are there different issues, or not so much different issues, but always the same issues, but are you finding that the younger people are coming to you with different, are you finding that the younger people are coming with different issues than the older, and is there a difference between how, they deal with it? Are you finding that you have to kind of deal with things with the younger in a different way than the older, or again, would you say when you get to the heart of things, it tends to be that, it's the same?
Honestly, you'd be surprised at how similar our pain points are. I think that, in sort of nominal society, we have this tendency to want to categorize things and put things in different buckets, etc. But when it comes to, relational pain, right? There is commonality across the board. It's the same things where, we keep bickering and arguing about the same sorts of issues. I don't feel satisfied sexually. I feel like that spark is gone. I'm a bit worried that, they have eyes for another person. I'm not feeling the spark. It's the same sort of issues. Whether it's someone who's 19 or someone who's 56, it's the same, similar issues. The only difference is what stage of life am I at right now whilst I'm facing this issue? But the issues are fundamentally the same. So I suppose that's is that good news or bad news?
I think I think it's good, and I think also it really shows that until you're willing to do the work, this problem will go with you right in, for decades to come. So I think that
absolutely.
That I think is good news for people to know that the quicker, the sooner you do the work, you will get the change that you desire. Whereas if you don't, like you said, if you keep doing the same things, you're going to get the same results. There's no things ain't just going to change. Yeah, that's
a guarantee.
Yes, and you also talked about self-love and self-care, and again, what do you find that comes up as well? That people sometimes forget. People can lose themselves in a relationship. Absolutely. It's where you get so consumed by the other person that most of your attention is on them, and we rationalize this to ourselves. It's because I love them so much, right? Because this is they are the apple of my eye, the object of my desire, etc. But you forget, right, that in order for you to be the best functioning partner possible, you also have to look after yourself. Okay, if all of your energy is going, is sort of spent on the other person, well, then who's going to look after those fundamental needs that only you can look after? So even in a situation and in cases where the other person is reciprocating, right, there are certain needs of yours that only you can look after. So, for example, let's take your health and fitness, right? Your partner can't take care of your health and fitness for you. That's something that you need to do. You know what I mean? So, but if all your focus is on your partner, it's like you need to learn to love yourself. And loving yourself means that you are, I think Jordan Peterson puts it really interestingly, like treating yourself like somebody you are responsible for taking care of, right? You know what I mean? The same love that you direct to your partner, direct some of that back to yourself. And guess what? The more you love yourself, the more you start to take care of those intrinsic needs that you have, the more you will widen your bandwidth for loving the other person. Yeah. I love that because, you have to practice that relationship with yourself and loving yourself, and you can only give what you are. And if you're, if you don't show love to yourself, it doesn't matter what happens is what you're giving to the other person becomes a burden to them because it's full of your, not taking care of you. And so where you might feel that, I'm being this loving person, like you said, they're like, I love this person. But, not taking care of themselves is going to put that burden on the other person. And they're also not going to be as loving as they think they are being loving.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And don't forget, because, another thing that tends to happen is people get, in the beginning, you meet someone and, you want to try and make yourself look nice, and you want to present the best version of yourself, right? But then you become very comfortable, and all of a sudden you're not going for that haircut, before date night, and you're a bit sloppy, and no, I'm not saying you should sort of keep up a facade. What I'm saying is, you want to constantly keep it in your mind that, look, I have to keep showing up. I have to keep showing up to keep this person interested, but also to sort of, I feel good about myself and about what I'm doing, about who I am right now. I want to feel good about who I am. You put in that effort to make yourself look nice. You look and you feel nice first and foremost, right? And then the other person has the pleasure of seeing you in that light, right? But first and foremost, you feel nice. You look nice, right? And I'm just using this as a metaphor, right? It can be whatever it is that you used to do in the beginning because you wanted to show this person that, I'm a high value individual. Well, keep doing that thing. Keep being a high value individual. Keep being a high value individual. And I promise you, your partner will appreciate you and they will continue to desire you. Because there's nothing as sexy, nothing as attractive as the person who takes care of themselves.
Okay, and with that said, it's like, a couple meet and, they both present the best version of themselves, and then the relationship, kicks in, and over the years they start, one or both might start, kind of giving up on themselves a little bit and, letting themselves go a little bit. How important is it, because you just mentioned about, appearance and what have you, because some people would say, yeah, but, we love each other and, but how important would you say is it to kind of try to reach, obviously, over decades and decades, one is going to get older, that's a natural process, but how important is it to maintain, just taking care of yourself in your relationship for, you're not just for yourself, but also for, being present in a sort of relationship?
It is. That's a great question. It is incredibly important. So aging is a natural process. So that's not the issue. It's more about so what if I'm getting older? I still want to feel good. Right? I still want to take care of myself. So that's the angle I would look at it from, right? So, we grow old. There's nothing wrong with growing old, right? But it's like to just continue to nurture yourself. Just make that extra bit of effort. Make that extra, try and look nice. Or, if there was a thing that you used to do, maybe on their birthday, you would send them some chocolates because you knew that was something they liked. Continue to make that effort. You know what I mean? But you want to don't want to let yourself go, because when you let yourself go, things can go down a rabbit hole that you will not like, right? But, maintain a little bit of that mystique, right? And someone might listen to that and think, well, no, are you saying I actually keep secrets from my partner? No, it's keep up with your interests. Keep up with some of your interests. You like book club. Well, keep doing that. Don't collapse into the relationship and then that's all there is. Because guess what? When you have your own sort of sense of self, when you are your own autonomous being, your own autonomous individual, well, that makes you that's one of the things that makes your partner continue to desire you, right? Because Esther Perel says desire needs distance. And what that means is, physical or psychological distance. And psychological distance can be created by just simply, okay, every Friday I meet up with, the girls, or I meet up with the lads for whatever it is, for a drink or to go to the movies, or, that little bit of distance that tells me, now you can be the object of my desire because you're outside of me, right? So that's what I would say. It's more about just continuing to nurture yourself. There's nothing wrong with growing old. Aging is a natural part of life, but it's just continue to make that effort. Don't use the fact that you are aging as a justification for no longer putting in effort into looking after yourself, or engaging in some of those practices that sort of stroke desire in your relationship in the past, like going out on dates, or your intimacy rituals, etc. So keep doing all those things. So that's where the discipline comes in.
So it's that self-discipline and kind of always checking in, because I think what I'm hearing you say throughout this conversation, Harry, is that it's important to kind of check in with yourself, have that ability to kind of ask yourself, am I doing what am I slacking on what I should be doing here in this relationship, and for myself, because I'm hearing it's a two-pronged relationship, isn't it? You're having that relationship with yourself, and then you're also sharing that with your other.
Absolutely.
And I think
Absolutely.
I think that's what can be difficult for people. They either forget themselves and focus on the other, or they just focus on themselves and forget the other. And have you got any sort of advice on how people can remember that, you know, they have to take care of themselves, and, you know, what that might look like, and also, you know, remember that there's another person in the relationship with them as well.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna share something that's like super practical. Okay, most people use smartphones today, right? Most people set an alarm on your phone, right? And change the title from alarm, change it to check in with me, check in with self. How am I feeling? How am I doing? Right? And you can do that, you know, multiple times during the day. You can have one for check in with myself, right? You can have another one for checking with my partner. You know, checking with insert partner's name. You know, so that's one practical thing. And I guess the sort of, you know, big picture point here is make it a daily practice. Or you know, even if someone says, daily practice. Check in with yourself at the end of each week. You know, but just make it a practice. Make it a habit. You know, you build up the habit of checking in with yourself and checking in with the other person, but you have to be intentional about it. That's the thing. You have to be intentional about it. You know, like I said, myself and my girlfriend, we schedule our call. Literally, it goes into the calendar. It goes into the calendar. You know, it goes into the calendar. That way, you know, I can't get any, you know, bookings with clients in that time. That's our time. That's our time. It's not a case of, oh, the day got away from me, or the last 2 weeks have gotten away from me. It's always busy. There's always something to do. There's always going to be something to do. Do you know what I mean? So make it a deliberate practice. Schedule it in if you need to schedule it in. If you need to set an alarm, set an alarm. Okay. If you want to, you know, if you want to be really smooth and you don't want your partner to know that you've been, you know, that you schedule it in, set that alarm for you. You don't need to tell them that you set an alarm. But when that alarm goes off, you go over to them and say, "Hey, baby, how you feeling?"
How cool is that? Wow.
You know. So that's what I would say.
No, you're right, Harry, because I think as well, we live in such a fast-paced life. You know, we've got such a fast-paced lifestyle these days. And I think the poor old relationship is the first casualty, you know, with everything and everyone vying for our attention. So I do agree with you that you have to really make time and space and put that relationship, have a priority that it deserves to be, if you want it to kind of go on for any length of time.
Absolutely. You know, and I have to say this before the end of our conversation, okay? Because I'm going to be so frustrated if I don't bring this up, because this is a very core component to all of this, right? Remember to nurture your friendship. Remember to nurture your friendship. Okay, for all the successful, absolutely, that is the foundation for everything. That is the foundation for everything. If we're not friends, I don't want to check in with you. I don't care what's going on with you, right? I want to get away from you, because all you do is nag, right? Right? And look, if I'm your friend, we don't want to be constantly nagging our friends, right? If we want to give feedback to our friends, we find a way to. What I will always say is, before you deliver any sort of anything that could be taken up the wrong way, anything that could be, you know, misconstrued, right? You want to always start by reaffirming your partner's significance to you, or whoever it is. If it's a friend, if it's a sibling, reaffirm that, hey, you mean a lot to me, right? However, I would like to tell you about something that has been bothering me, so own it, right? And then you can, in certain situations, you can state your conditions for satisfaction. You know, it would be very helpful if in the future you XYZ. Okay? Reaffirm their value, right? Because that will disarm their defensiveness, right? Then own whatever it is that you want to say. So rather than, you know, I'd like to let you know, I just want you to know how much I love you, right? But you're just so lazy, and I would enjoy it if you weren't so lazy. No, that defeats the purpose. Right? And it's also not specific. That doesn't tell me much. That's a global attack on my character. Okay? So now it doesn't matter that you told me how much I meant to you. Well, if I meant so much to you, you wouldn't just call me lazy, right? You know what I mean? So what you want to be specific. So I just want you to know, I love you, baby. You mean the world to me. I enjoy nothing more than spending these evenings with you, these Friday nights, these moments where we get to sit down and enjoy this red wine, whatever it is, but I would like to bring something to your attention, right? I would really appreciate it if when when you're putting the laundry away, you don't fold my underwear. I just don't like that. Whatever, you know what I mean? And all of a sudden it's like, or I could be like, why do you always fold my underwear? I keep telling you, but you know what? You're just a whole, But that's a completely different conversation. Same message, but completely different delivery. Nurture that friendship. How would you say it to your friend? Exactly. Because you know what? Because they won't stick around for that. They won't stick around for that. And then another thing, because this has just come to me now, and it's very important, and I speak about this in my coaching community, is don't put your partner down in front of other people. And don't put your partner down in front of other people. That is bad news. Bad news. Take it from me. Bad news. You want to destroy that friendship. You want to destroy the magic, the passion between you. Then go ahead and keep putting them down. Talking down on them at the dinner parties, and they're useless. They're no good for this. They're no good. That is horrible. That's one of the worst things you could possibly do. Stop putting them down. In fact, you shouldn't. You try to not to put them down. Period. Because guess what? You put them down. What you have now is a deflated partner, and that's no good. Absolutely. It's a try and big them up. I'll tell you something, right? And I tell this to all my clients, and this is something I actively practice in my relationship. My girlfriend and I were constantly hyping each other up over little things. Little things like, you see the way you got through, like you got through the dishes there in like record time, 20 minutes. You are so fucking talented. You know what I mean? It's just a little thing. Find the little. Like, I love how I loved how you were with my sister earlier, because I've got a baby sister. She's 11. I'm like, I love how present you were with her. That was really beautiful. You know what I mean? Like, just, we keep hyping each other up. Funny, ironically, she's also a relationship coach. So, like, she put something out, I hype her up. Like, that was amazing. That was amazing content you had there. And while I listened to that interview, it was just, you're so powerful, so good at what you do. You constantly hype your partner up.
Yeah, I hear you on that. It's so important to, kind of be the person that is going to kind of, share with in public. You want to say, this is a person that I value and that I care for, and they're an amazing person, and kind of announce that. But you definitely don't want to announce the things that maybe you don't like. And like you were saying, there's a place for that. There's a way to say, as you said, in a nice way. You tell them what you like about them, what you love about them, and then you kind of, in a very nice, loving way, tell them about the things that maybe you would hope they can change. But to do that, I mean, and I know John Gottman talks about, the four, is it the four horsemen of that breaks, and he can actually tell by looking.
The four horsemen of negativity.
Yes,
the four horsemen of negativity, he calls it. And criticism, contempt, stonewalling, and defensiveness.
Yeah, and how often do people do that in their relationships? It's one of the big. It's those are the big things that kind of really weaken the bond between two people. And it is something that, definitely, people need to be very aware of. Like you said, that discipline, that, making time, literally by timing. When are you going to say something nice or give your partner a hug? How important those little things are and how they build. Because I think as well...
Oh, absolutely.
it's all about the bond, and I think people don't realise that the bond is something that you build, day by day by day, and it's everything, it's the things that you do and say, and certainly in public, you want your partner needs to feel that you value them and that you see them in a good way.
Absolutely. If you got nothing good to say about them in public, say nothing at all.
Don't say
anything. You'd be
at
better
all.
off.
Yes.
You'd be better off saying nothing. That is one of the worst things anyone can do. Put your partner down in public. I cannot stress this enough, because I've seen it happen over and over again. I've been in situations where I've seen couples just put each other down, or like making jokes at their partner's expense. And that's not to say you can't have it. You can have them. You can mess around, but like when you're putting them down, right? That's exactly. Exactly. Really powerful questions, Imani. I'm really enjoying these questions.
Oh, bless you. And I'm really enjoying the answers. You're giving some seriously powerful answers here. Thank you so much, Harry. I want to also.
I appreciate that.
I know I'm kind of mindful of time. I hope you've got some more time that you can spend with us, because I want to ask you a few more questions. Now, I want to ask you about mindset in relationship, values, and couples goals. Like say when you get your brand new clients, people who've probably just met, or even what kind of advice would you give to people, about shared mindset, about shared values, and about couples goals?
Values are very important.
Yeah. Do you want to take one of those? Okay. Yeah. So, take one of those each at a time. Then we'll go to the next one. So we're listening.
Yeah. Absolutely. So values are super important, and ideally, before you get into a relationship, you want to establish, alignment on your fundamental values. So, for example, let's say you have always wanted to be a parent, right? And this is something that is very important to you, right? Well, you want to ensure, prior to getting into the relationship, that your prospective partner would also like to have kids, because if this is something that's very important to you and it's something that is not very important to them, I can guarantee you that it's going to create a huge problem, and it's one of those irreconcilable problems, right? So values are very important. You want to ensure that you are, I'm not saying that you need to be aligned. You don't want to be with a replica of yourself, but you need to, first of all, understand, right, like what are the things that really matter to me. So in my case, some things that really matter to me, right? Family is very important to me. Ambition, right? So I'm a risk taker, and I will, and look, that's not everybody's cup of tea, right? So I'm liable to, risk everything I have, on a new project, or, what I mean? So that's something that's very important, and it's core to who I am, right? Health and fitness. So I devote a lot of time to training, and, I put a lot, very meticulous about, my nutrition, etc., right? So these are things that are very central to who I am. Intellectual curiosity, right? I love learning. I love, deconstructing complex ideas. Okay. So these are things that are very important to me. So before getting into my relationship, let me take my current relationship. Before we got to the stage where we decided, okay, let's give this a go, right? We had, because like I said, she's also a relationship coach. So it was almost like we were vetting each other. It wasn't like we were sitting there like, okay, I've got all these questions, but over time we were, we had a conversation about family. Like, hey, would you ever think about having kids? And I'd love to have kids. And me too. Okay, tick. And like, she's like, I see you, I really love that you're into martial arts, etc. I also love working out. I'm into yoga. Okay, cool. Family. I'm a big family person. I'm a big family person. So on those key things. But then, of course, there are areas where we are different, right? So we might like different movies, or we have different interests here and there, and that's okay. But on those fundamentals, on those core things, for example, like I said, I'm a risk taker, right? And she's a risk taker as well, so she understands that inclination that I have. okay, now if I'm a risk taker and, you're somebody who perhaps, you like security, and by the way, there's no right or wrong. There's just how you are or how you are not, right? So there's nothing wrong with that. But if maybe you're somebody who you like a sense of, you like to know what's going on, you like to, you're quite risk averse, right? Then it might be very difficult for you to be with somebody like me. You know what I mean? So that's why it's very important. And another thing is, a relationship vision. You always, I would highly recommend having a vision for your relationship, because there was a book I was reading recently called The Latte Factor by a guy named David Bach, and one of the lines...
Say that title again, please, Harry.
The Latte Factor. The Latte Factor. Yeah, like coffee. Yeah, the Latte Factor. There was a line in the book where I think he said something like, if you don't know where you're heading, you may not like where you end up. So it's very important to have a vision for your relationship. Like, what are we trying to build here? Like, I have a vision for my relationship. Okay, this is what we're clear on. Okay, this is what we're trying to build. What are some projects that we would like to embark on together? What would we like to do with our intimacy? What would we like to do in terms of, financial goals, etc. Right? Now, we still have our individual goals, right? Because you have to keep those individual goals. But we also have a clear kind of roadmap for where we would like things to be moving forward. Yeah.
I love all that you said there, very, very powerful. The roadmap is important, because you have that clear thing. It's always there. You know where you're going, and it means that you are together on that. Yes, you've got your individual goals and what have you, but as a couple in a relationship, you also have something that you're working towards, and that again, helps the bond. And then you were talking earlier on about the difference between interests and core values. Very, very differently. To me, the different interests makes each person interesting to the other, because you're now coming with something different.
Exactly.
It's like, oh, okay, that's different. I don't do that normally, but so it opens up, like you were saying earlier on, a different side. You get to see, okay, they're into this, and you may never be interested in that, but you get to see them outside of what you know them to be. So really powerful things.
Absolutely.
So, Harry, about mindset. So, values are there, but how important is it to kind of, have that similar mindset, which is kind of similar with the values, but is there anything else you want to add on that?
Yeah, well, I think, similar mindset, well, typically you will gravitate to somebody who is similarly minded, right? Now, of course, we have our sort of intricate differences, but, you want to be with somebody who, at least in a broad sense, sees things, in the way that you see them, right? Because that's what allows for commonality and, some shared interests. However, that's not to say that, you can have two people who see the world completely differently, right? And I've seen this, who, maybe one person is very sort of spiritual, right? And is really dialed into spiritual practice, but the other person isn't into all that stuff, from their perspective. I'm not into all that stuff, but they align on the fundamental values, and that makes them work. So I would say the fundamental values, that's probably the most important thing. The sort of variances here and there in how you see the world, insofar as you're on those fundamentals, you are aligned. I think that's the most important thing.
That is awesome, Harry. You've given us so many gems for the last hour and 39 minutes. My goodness, all these wonderful, answers. And what I want to ask you is what will people get when they have a session with Harry? What can they expect from you?
Well, you can expect, to be challenged on, your existing belief system, right? And you can expect to be taken out of your comfort zone and, taken into a place where you start to look at things through a different perspective, through a different lens. So we try and I try and get my clients to adopt, a myriad of lenses, right? Because that enables them to start to see things differently, right? Seeing things from a different perspective doesn't mean you agree with that perspective, but it means that you're giving yourself, more options. You know what I mean? You're broadening your horizon. You're broadening your possibilities. But you can also expect to be completely safe psychologically, in the sense that, one thing I always say to my clients is, this is a space where you can come and try on new ideas, no matter how horrendous they are, how horrible you may think. I'm not here to judge you, and it's when we work together, we're in the incubator. So, as a matter of fact, I would prefer if you brought your outrageous ideas here so that we can dissect them. We can dissect them. You can expect for your blind spots to be brought to the forefront of your consciousness, because we all have blind spots. But most importantly, you can expect to have a lot of fun. And I prioritize fun in my work, because I have a lot of fun doing what I do, and it's very important for me that my clients see the process that we embark on as a lot of fun as well. Yes, you're gonna have to do the work. Yes, you will be challenged. Yes, you will get to see things from different perspectives, but I also guarantee you will have a lot of fun, and that's important.
Of course, highly important. That's awesome. So, Harry, how can people get hold of you? How can people get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So you can reach me via my website. So www.harryuddoh.com. So that's UDDOH.com. Or you can connect with me on socials, on Instagram, Harry_Uddoh, UDDOH, or Facebook, Harry Uddoh, UDDOH, a Harry Uddoh Relationship Coach. Or you can send me an email directly, me@harryuddoh.com. So you can go to my website, you can send me an email, so me@harryuddoh.com. You can reach out to me on Instagram, Harry_Uddoh, or you can reach out to me on Facebook, Harry Uddoh Relationship Coach.
Wow, lots of ways to get in touch with you. That's awesome. So, Harry, you've been talking to the listening audience, and we've had a bit of a year this year. We're not going to kind of go into it. We all know what's been going on. But what would you say to someone who maybe this year has really kind of affected them? They might have lost, as in there might be in bereavement. But also, what about people who may have lost their relationship? This year they may have been in their relationship for a long time. And they're kind of going through the bereavement of that, or they might have met someone recently and it just didn't go anywhere. What would you say to that person to kind of help them to deal with the situation?
Right, that's a great question. So one thing I will say is, look, this has been a tough year, right? And be compassionate to yourself. If you have just you were in a relationship and it's just broken down, or you met someone recently and it sort of fizzled out, give yourself license to despair. And what I mean by license to despair is allowing yourself to feel whatever you need to feel. If you need to cry, cry. Okay? If you need to scream into a pillow, do that. If you need to hit a punching bag, do that. If you need to go for a run, just give yourself license to feel whatever you feel, right? And allow yourself to go through the cycle of emotional release. Because sometimes what happens is we want to sort of prove a point. It's an ego-based thing, like, I don't really care, like, whatever, but we're hurting on the inside, right? Give yourself license to despair, because once you release those emotions, you will then be in a place where you're ready to move forward and take the next step. But one thing I will say is, this tough time that you're experiencing right now, think of it as a season. Seasons change. One way of looking at it is, think of a time where you were in a blissful, euphoric state, right? Just think back to a period in your life where things were amazing. Did it last forever? No. The season changed, right? So in the same way, this season that you're currently in, this season will change. It's okay if you're struggling right now. It's okay if you're not feeling super confident. It's okay if you're almost in a state of mourning. You're mourning the relationship you've just lost. Take it from me. I've been where you are. I know what it's like. This is a season. it will change. But the first step is to give yourself license to despair. And once you've cried, once you've gone through the, those emotions of, how could this happen? Like, this is horrible. Once you get to that point where you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, start to ask new questions. And a great place to start is, what would I do differently? Or what is my next step? What is my next step from here? From here, where I am right now, what is my next step? Because that gives you something to start to look toward. You're looking towards something, right? As opposed to being stuck where you are. But you need to give yourself license to despair so that you can experience and release those sensations in order to get into that space where you are able to look towards something.
Wow. Harry, very powerful, because you're so right. You have to feel those feelings, because, otherwise they will come back and they will, eat away at anything new that you start to, that you might get into.
Absolutely.
It's very, very powerful. There was something else you said there. Yeah, I love that. What's my next step? Because everything starts with a step. Everything starts with,
Absolutely.
You don't have to do it all in one go. Just one step at a time.
One step. That's all you need to figure. All you need to figure out is what your next step is. That's it. Focus on that.
Awesome.
And then when you get there, what's the next step? Yeah. And the next step. And then step by step, you create something new. But every act of creation is first an act of destruction. So this relationship that you just lost, it had to be destroyed in order for you to create something new.
Yes.
In order for you to be reborn. Yes. Every act of creation is first an act of destruction.
I love that. Wow. Harry, when I saw the I think it was your conversation with you having a conversation with Nigel Beckles, and I thought, wow, and I'm so glad that you agreed to come on the show. What I want to ask you is, where do you see Harry, and because you're a phenomenal relationship coach, where do you see where do you see your coaching business or anything else that you're going to bring to the table between now and the next few years, the next 5 years or so?
Honestly, I look at things in. I always focus on what is the immediate next step, right? So the next step for me is to continue to get the word out to more people, so they realize that this person exists, right? That I can go to, and there are resources out here for me to actually take a holistic view, a holistic approach to improving my relationship, right? So it's to make, because the way I look at it is, the people that I work with, people like you, Imani, like, we all belong to a tribe, right? So it's to let members of our tribe know that, hey, we are out here and we are here to serve you, okay? And that's something that I'm constantly sort of striving for, is to let other members of the tribe know that you are not alone, and we are here to support, we are here to serve. And I think for me, that's what I'm going to continue to do, is continue to serve. Someone asked me recently, like, how would you describe yourself? And I said, well, I describe myself as an instrument of powerful service, and that's what I will continue to do, continue to serve.
That is a great, answer, and definitely, that's what life is about, isn't it? Being here, and with all, billions of us, it's about your gift is for you to use as service to help everybody, and if everyone's utilising their gift, then you have a world that is full of people that are happy because they've found their purpose. And I feel that what you're doing as well is helping people to find their purpose within themselves and within their relationship as well. So you're doing great work, Harry. Is there anything else you want to say? Is there anything that you want to tell people about that I haven't asked you about? Is there anything, anything else you want to share with the listening audience before we wrap up this segment?
I feel like we've covered most things, honestly. If you would like to, sort of delve a little deeper, if you would like to hop on a call with me, if you reach out to me on my website or send me an email, we can set up a, free consultation. And, I'm here to serve. So if you need to get in touch, if you've listened to this and you've thought, oh, wow, something really resonated with me, can I get in touch with Harry? I'm very accessible. So you can reach me, again, me at harryuddoh.com, me@harryuddoh.com, harryuddoh.com, which is my website, Harry_Uddoh, which is, Instagram, or Harry Uddoh Relationship Coach. And that's UDDOH.
Well, Harry, I'd like to say thank you very much for coming on the show, and it will be lovely for you to come back whenever you can. And I wish you continued success with your business, your coaching business, and the lives that you're making a difference in. So thank you, and keep doing the great work that you're doing.
I really appreciate that.